Yep, we're burning down the house, folks. California is coming down. Lots of pockets of homes are being destroyed by the minute. Terrible situation, just devastating. But still, with all of that, it is only about 10 to 15% of the devastation and destruction that happened in North Carolina with Hurricane Helene. How easily we forget so quickly in the face of drama and inspiration from the media trying to tell us what it is that we need to concentrate our focus on. And sad state of affairs, suffering all over. There's lots of room for help to be given. But along with that, there is so much accountability that is not being responded to. It's not, no one's taking the accountability for this. Everyone's passing the buck saying, well, I didn't do it, they did it. That was their responsibility. You know, all this stuff. The fire chief saying, well, it's not my job to put water in the fire lines for the hydrants and things like that. That's not my job. Maybe not, but you would think it'd be part of their purview to make sure that she's not putting her staff and firefighters in harm's way with inadequate resources. You would think that they would be checking in on this stuff on a regular basis. Typically, all it would take is to go out and open up a fire hydrant, flush it out, just make sure that you have pressure. They knew they were coming on the Santa Ana wind season. No one's taking accountability on this. They're all passing the buck. And this is kind of what is the norm in our public arena these days. It's not just with our public officials. It goes into our school systems. It goes into the way that our federal bureaucracy works, our policing. You know, some of the troubling aspects that's kind of goes across the board with these people is they get a bad actor, somebody fails miserably, they will typically be dismissed, and without any actual judgment coming down on them or any kind of discipline being enforced, they're allowed to go to another jurisdiction and pick up a job again without being called to the mat on it. And the next people taking them in really don't have the full story about this person they're just looking to hire. So it seems that these people are not talking to each other and not, enforcing the rules against their own employees or their own department heads for the sake of let's just get along and keep moving on down. It's not our problem anymore. Hopefully they learned. It's a bad way to go about things. It would never happen in the private sector, and it shouldn't happen in our public sector. So prayers go out to all these folks, not only just in California, but especially on our folks on the East Coast who seem to be getting stonewalled here with FEMA help. Baby died the other day, froze to death, a newborn baby, because there was no heat in the shelter that they had these people in. That's my understanding. I'm trying to dig more into that. That's just intolerable. That's just really intolerable. We have to fix this stuff, and we have to make sure that our instincts are leading us to the self-protection of our people and not our own individual power. And this is what these officials and these politicians, they're all more concerned about their power than they are about the work that needs to be done. So they're burying Jimmy Carter. He definitely didn't work that way. He was a great humanitarian, terrible statesman. He was one of the worst presidents we ever had. He had to have been so thankful when he died that somebody surpassed him in incompetence. But that's a whole nother story. But Jimmy Carter, good man, loved people, worked hard at it, used his hands, and that's credibility that we could all emulate. As far as his policies and things like that, when he was in office, didn't work. Don't retry that again. 19% home mortgage rates, not a good thing. It did not inspire me as a young man. I've been basically handicapped from that moment going forward back in the mid-'80s. It was just a terrible time. A lot of younger people have no idea what a 19% mortgage rate does to one's finances. They have no idea what the pending interest rate is on buying a car when your mortgage rate is at 19%. I believe that car rates were at 24% at that time. It was just incredible. Just you couldn't think about that, what was happening then in today's terms, without just having to shake your head and go, what the hell was going on with that? That's crazy talk. It was. But that was the world we lived in at that time. So we've got all these officials out there kind of given the pass on things. No one's taking full ultimate responsibility for this. We'll see how this all plays out. But there's a parallel in the universe with the public officials and people passing the buck and just kind of getting along to get along type of things. We have this in our church administration. I'm talking about the Catholic Church. The Protestants, they got enough problems of their own. But the Catholic Church, with its administration and its levels of authority, they kind of do the same thing for each other. And this is a really bad practice to have, because what ends up happening is people get hurt in a different sort of way. They end up being shut down. They get ostracized. They get put out. They get excluded from community. They get basically canceled in a church sense. And I've had personal experience with this. I was told I was a fool, I was a liar, I was all sorts of things, with just even talking about this devotion to Our Lady of America and trying to get people to even look at people, I'm talking about priests or bishops or anyone else, was basically shut out as being a renegade, being some sort of uncooperative person, when that was the last of things that was going on. I was trying to get explanations, trying to get help. I was trying to ring the bell, so to speak, which had already been rung. I mean, I'd already been led into this by capable people, archbishops, years before me. So for them to act like this was something new was completely a false representation on the part of these bishops and archbishops at that time. So now I don't know. I don't know if we can count on them because they kind of play past the buck. And I want to talk about situations that we have with priests and bishops who do bad things, and then what happens to them. They're not typically put up on an administrative kind of review and a shutdown. They're usually graduated to more responsibilities, and they fail upward, much like in the model with our federal government people. So this isn't always the case, but it seems to be all too common. And I'm going to talk about a situation with a priest who had been here in Rome City about a decade ago, and I'm still cleaning up some of the problem that he left behind and the number of people that he hurt, whether intentionally or unintentionally. There's been no follow-up with these folks. He did a lot of bad things here in the community to turn people against the Catholic Church in particular, non-Catholics here in town who have a real anger towards what happened at that time. And I would suggest that the church officials who put him up here and allowed him to come into this town to try to start a new Franciscan order really didn't read the room and didn't know the history of this area when they allowed this group of 40 to 50 men to come into this town and act as beggars in probably the most destitute county in the entire state of Indiana. They had these men out begging on the streets, going into the stores, begging for food. And when people would give them food, they say, oh, no, that's not what we needed. Tonight we're making Italian food, so we need pasta and sauce. It's like there's some sort of a menu plan. But they didn't want to take what was being offered, the beans and franks type of stuff. It says, oh, no, we need Italian food tonight. And it would make these people feel bad. They would go back into the store and buy them boxes of dry spaghetti and the pasta sauce so that they could go home, because they were basically feeling bad that they didn't deliver what these guys in the robes were wanting. These guys weren't even Franciscans. They were just, guys, looking at discerning whether or not they had a calling to the religious life. So they were new arrivals, but they put them in a robe, took off their shoes, and sent them out on the street, and just caused a shitload of confusion in this town. And so it was a bad play all the way around, but we're still dealing with the after effects of this. I still get called out when I go to a grocery store, or I might be filling up at the gas station, and somebody pulls up and knows of my affiliation with the property there yet. And they say, I hope you don't bring those bastards back here again, because, man, that was bad. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It says, well, those monks that you had in here. So I didn't have any monks in here at all. I said, but, they're all gone, and they're hopefully not going to be coming back, but I really don't have anything to do with that. You have to talk to the local bishop on that. His name is Kevin Rhodes, and you can find him in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Well, things kind of got out of hand here in Rome City back around 2014 to 2016 with this guy. It was very, very loose group going on, not a lot of discipline going on with this, and they were very, very, very destructive. They basically destroyed 8 townhouses we had on the property, ripped all the interiors out of these things, took foundational and structural elements, walls. They would take 2x4 studs out of the walls because they needed a 2x4. So they would rip open the drywall, open up these walls, and take out every other 2x4 stud to try to harvest wood. One of the dumbest, most lame-brained things you can do in a structure, a multi-floored structure where you got people sleeping upstairs, you take out structural elements of these things. They're already kind of flimsy buildings to begin with because they were prefab, built off-site type structures. I mean, what kind of a brain trust is doing this kind of crap? Well, the kind of brain trust that goes around the country and ends up destroying things wherever he goes. And let me tell you about this guy. So this fellow was supposedly under the direction of Bishop Rhodes, and things fall apart here. The bishop finds out how bad it was. He disbands the whole group of men. I think they allowed 3 of them to continue on in seminary, and about 40 of them were told to not come back, type of thing. You're done, go on. But they allowed 3 to attend seminary, and then he moved this particular priest out of the diocese and sent him down to a southern state, thinking that nobody down there would probably know his pattern of behavior, and he probably would have learned his lesson, so he'll go on to be a good priest here from now on. That wasn't the case. This guy was power hungry, still is power hungry, and he destroys things in his wake, and he hurts people. He hurt people in this town. He hurt a good friend of mine, basically took her van for almost a half a year, would not return it, made her feel bad about it when she asked to get the van back, and they finally left the van abandoned on a street side in South Bend, Indiana, where it was shut down. It finally broke on them. And so what they did, instead of towing the van back to her home or to a repair garage, they just called her and said, hey, it's up here, come and get it, good luck. And the woman she lived almost 2 hours away. And I was living in Chicago at this time. And so she called me and says, what do I do? And I said, well, she didn't have physical capability. She was pretty much burdened by her own physical limitations. She had a fused back, fused neck. The woman was a wreck, but she lived a full life, and just a miracle in itself. But I drove over from Chicago, found the van, no keys in it, so I had to drive to Rome City to retrieve the keys to drive back to South Bend, which is an hour each way, so there's 2 more hours on the road. and trying to find where the keys are when I got here. Anyway, we retrieved the van, got it serviced. She repaired it and sold it and got it out of her life. But this is the kind of things he do. But it got even worse because he would end up hurting people and bullying people. If he didn't get his way in a parish structure or an assignment, he would just blow up at people and MF them up and down one side of the wall, back down to the other, and just make these people feel terrible about their relationship with their church and this particular pastor. So anyway, he didn't last long anywhere he went. And one thing that's common about all the places he went, nobody's harking and saying, oh, I wish he would come back. They're all so glad that he's gone. But this guy laid trouble in several states over the course of the last 10 years. And now he's landed in another southern state, and he's wreaking havoc down there then too. And when the people in the parishes and combined all around have gone to their bishops to question this fellow's presence there and to talk about the destructive things that have happened, the bishops have pretty much turned against the people reporting the issue and supported this priest and told them that they need to calm down and they need to be quiet. Otherwise, they're going to be out of order and they're going to be told to not come back. And this has happened. So you don't blame the victim here. You find that there's a continuing problem here. And these bishops all know that this guy has a yellow flag just tied around him. They know the guy has got a history of problems. But what do? Nothing. They keep putting him back out there. They keep supporting him. They let him move around, and they're not shutting him down. So right now, it seems that there's about 3 bishops right now that have reports on this guy. And apparently, the telephones and the email communications don't work from bishop to bishop because it doesn't seem that these guys are actually talking to each other and comparing notes. So something needs to be done on this. People's lives, families' lives are being affected by this guy, and not in a positive way. So something needs to be done here. We need to take a look at these things. Alex and I are going to be talking about this. He's coming in. He's prepared some copious notes. We're going to talk about what it is that keeps this clique of priests that defending each other against the troubles and the reports of the patrons of the church, that being the members of the parishes, the faithful, the people who pay the bills ultimately. It just seems that they're protecting the interest of the church over and above the needs of the people, at all expenses here and all costs, because they got to keep that money coming in. And without that money coming in, things dry up and then things get tight, and then they have to start selling off some of the land that the church owns. So heaven forbid that the church would have to start selling off property to pay some bills like they had to do back during the priest scandals. This is terrible stuff. And what they did then, they covered up for them. The bishops did the same thing. They covered for the priests and tried to blame the victim on that, say, no, you're just imagining these things. This didn't happen. So we need to change course. We need a new playbook. And hopefully we'll be getting that here, because it seems that the tide and the discussions are changing. It's changing in the mainstream media. People are talking about accountability. They're a little bit pissed off. And maybe some of this will trend over into our religious culture and start calling for more accountability and repercussions for some of the behavior that's happened here. We need to self-police on these things. We don't need to get into civil courts on these things. We need to be self-policing. And where do I get that from, that we need to challenge our priests and bishops on these things? Well, I get it from the Blessed Mother and her messages beginning back at Fatima, when she called for her concerns about the priests and their worldliness not being addressed. She thought that the church was getting to be too possessive about material things, and she wanted to have a change on that. Well, what did the bishops do? Nothing. So what did she do? In 1956, she came back again as Our Lady of America And in that, she was concerned about the worldliness of her priests and bishops. What did they do? Nothing. 1960, she came at Garabandal. She says, look, it was 63, I think she said, she had asked for the Secrets of Fatima to be released in 1960, and that had to deal with her concerns about the state of the priests and the bishops. They didn't release it because they thought, oh, it would just cause problem. Well, yeah, but what you need to do is you need to fix your house, and they're not doing that. And they keep passing it along, say, oh, it's in God's hands. Well, you know what? You've had enough time to fix this thing. You need to change the playbook. We need to change the culture. And we're going to lose the ultimate end goal here if you don't fix this, because the kids coming along behind us now with their cell phones and their fact-checking and all like that, you can't keep hiding behind a little blanket of words there. The kids are going to find you out. And this is why they're not coming to church. And this is why they're disregarding what they've been taught through their families and schools. And they're saying, no, it says, what you say is not what I see. And this is the world we live in right now. So what we need to do is we need to get this out in the open. We need to have a frank discussion about this. And we need to start fixing some of these things. So in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.